Morning. Thank you for joining today's session. Thank you for hosting this training. This is a second module of our Silvair support training. This module will cover all the details regarding commissioning. So the first part will be a bit of theory. The second part will be live view presentation on how to commission devices and set up the zones, zone linking, and a relation between devices. Also, regarding before you go checklist and tips and tricks when commissioning the project. This is for active participants. As far as I know, we will focus only on my presentation, so we can disregard this information. This is a small recall from the last session presenting the architecture. Today we will focus only on lightning control commissioning and management app. Here are some examples of integrations with our system. So from the left, Silvair firmware in a LED driver connected to the luminaire and sensor. So that driver is Bluetooth mesh enabled only. In the middle, we have a sensor controller built-in Bluetooth mesh firmware only into a sensor. Sensor connects to the LED driver, and driver connects to the luminaire. In this case, only sensor controller is Bluetooth mesh enabled. On the third example, we have fixture controller connecting to driver, and driver connected to the luminaire, but the standalone sensor is also connected to the same network and works in relation to the fixture controller without physical connection. Both fixture controller and standalone sensor are Bluetooth mesh enabled. So you can see multiple configurations. Of course, there is a lot of different setups available, but these are the most common use cases for Bluetooth mesh enabled devices. Regarding firmware, we have single chip firmware with PWM 1 to 10 or DALI outputs. This single chip firmware also includes occupancy, ALS inputs. For example, Murata has a sensor controller in a small factor case, which is actually a sensor. Dual chip firmware integrates over UART. This design flexibility with custom application For example, DALI converters or BM-Link zoomable receivers, Macron sensor controllers, etc. To see all available products, you can navigate to our Silvair website, where you can find a list of products that we recommend. Now the most important information regarding firmware versions. Device capabilities are extended with each firmware version. Current live is 2.20, released yesterday. I don't have this listed here, but this will be available in our documentation under firmware release notes. As of now, the most important changes were from 2.15 through 2.16, 2.17, and 2.18. You can see the differences in, for example, in 2.17, we've introduced relay pin for DALI output and auto proxy feature. This is very detailed, and for more information, I would encourage anyone to check our firmware release notes, also available on our website for non-partner users. Firmware updates of commissioned devices may require recommissioning to activate new mesh models and features. So, for example, if you would have a huge installation and your devices are with version 2.17, maybe you will have low mesh quality in this installation. So it would be advisable to update all the devices to higher firmware 2.18 to, for example, increase replay protection limit to 350. I will talk about it more later. There is a lot of functions and additional capabilities with each firmware, and I cannot really explain all of them in a short presentation. So please also visit our archive for firmware release notes to understand which firmware provides which additional capabilities. This is an example based on Murata sensor, which is also a controller, a Bluetooth mesh enabled. You can see what kind of options there are on the device in regards to Bluetooth mesh. So in a very small form factor device, you can have Bluetooth radio, an ocean adapter, occupancy sensing, AL sensing for light, scene server, lightness controller, and 0 to 10 or DALI output. So this small device can fully deliver Bluetooth mesh connectivity for building the whole network. You don't need a Bluetooth mesh enabled driver or additional controllers. You can have single device to build the network on. So before commissioning, before the installation begins, on the previous session, we've talked about building the project. Now we will focus more on working with devices. So first of all, always understand the problem, what light control to be achieved. I talked about it before. If you need to understand when you need only occupancy sensing and when do you need uh, light external light sensing. Of course, internet access available on site all the time where you commission devices. Projects should be created beforehand. Most detailed floor plans should be uploaded to the projects. Areas created with detailed names, so you would understand even by reading the area name, you will know what kind of functionalities may be inside. For example, going forward with zones, you can easily distinguish storage rooms from open space areas, kitchens, or any other types of rooms. You should also define and assign profiles to zones also before going and starting with commissioning. It's also good to create zone linking before even devices are added. So, for example, a corridor could be linked to a specific room so that switch on the corridor can control the lamps inside the room. It's also very time saving if it's done before physically going on site and starting commissioning. Also, all collaborators should be invited before installation. Appropriate user roles should be assigned. And of course, you should have a list of all the devices, what kind of firmware version is on the devices. So whenever you you have any problems during installation and maybe you need to contact manufacturer or even Silvair for support, this is the first information that we always need. What kind of firmware is on the devices and what kind of devices are Bluetooth mesh enabled. Is it the driver? Is it the sensor, etc. So previously we talked about planning, which is done using web application. Implementation is done on-site physically with mobile app. And the third stage for successful project commissioning is tuning. We will talk about this later. To start commissioning, you need internet access for entire duration of the commissioning process. This is for your telephone. It might be a iOS-enabled tablet or phone. You need to be there, must be within radio range of devices to be commissioned. So if your mobile application doesn't see the device that you want to commission, you won't be able to commission such device. Very important information, you should always log in with account that has access to the project. You need to have installer privileges or higher. Select the project and area, select the zones in which you want to start commissioning devices, and start commissioning. I will show you the whole process on the second part of this training during live presentation. There are two ways of identifying uncommissioned devices in the field. Bluetooth status LED should blink 3 times a second, or light output blinks 2 times and off. I will show you how this looks on the live view as well. Power cycling a zone or area and observing the power on sequence is the only way to actually understand which devices are already commissioned, which aren't. This will be better explained on a live view presentation. Okay, this is supposed to be a demo, but as we are going with my presentation, it will be shown later. This is how the commissioning looks. I think at that point, I will be switching to the live view. So please hold on. It will take 2 minutes to start the live view presentation. Okay, now it should be visible. I hope it's clear enough for you to see what's happening on the left side on the tablet. And on the right side, there is USB hub with 5 Silvair singles, which are Bluetooth mesh enabled devices with our firmware. As you can see, all of the blue lights are blinking. These devices are uncommissioned yet. On the left side, we have one zone, which I will click right now. And I will add 2 devices to this zone by pressing this plus sign on the bottom right corner. Here I can narrow which devices are visible. I hope I will see some devices. Well, as I had this prepared before presentation, I will need to restart the application, I guess. Okay. Now the list shows all the available singles from the right side. I can narrow the list, but right now it will still show probably all of them because the distance is very close. So let's click the first one on the list, and you can see it's blinking, showing us the attention. So we know which node is to be commissioned. Let's add this. And even the first one is still configuring. We can also click the second one. And at the same time, we can commission 5 devices from the list. I would just need 2 right now. Okay. Now we can press done, and we can see 2 devices. First one is with a proxy. So this device will connect with my tablet for mesh connectivity for further commissioning. Okay. Now we can see that the zone has a blue check mark, so all the devices inside, commissioned inside, are working properly. Let's go back to the presentation. It's sometimes it's a huge challenge to commission proper devices, especially when you have multiple installers working on multiple floors. It's very important to observe the attention of the devices you try to add, because the mobile application can show you the nodes from different floors. So if you do not observe and you count on the distance, you might be surprised that you've commissioned devices from a different floor. So the solution for that, the only and the best one, is to power off the floors and the devices that shouldn't be commissioned on at that time. Of course, sometimes if you want to commission multiple floors, installers would go on, let's say, 3 floors at the same time. We do not advise that. It's better to focus on one floor and different areas than going through multiple floors above and beyond at the same time. So yes, in high density multi-floor installations, power off uncommissioned nodes in addition areas during commissioning. This speeds up process by only listing devices in the immediate area. Um, this is error for unactivated devices. This error indicates that the wrong application is being used for commissioning. Only solution is to recreate the project in the correct application. So this happens sometimes as someone is, for example, creating project in the Silvair web application, but actually installers are working on some of our partners' branded application. And when there was miscommunication while creating the project, installers had different applications on mobile phones than the project was existing in different one. If you encounter this error, you will have to recreate the project in the correct application. This requires either factory reset of all the devices or decommissioning all devices, then all devices are re-added to a new project. This is incredibly time-consuming and frustrating. That's why we focus a lot on planning and proper usage of proper applications. So we can prevent this by ensuring components offered for use in projects are activated on your application. So we have special keys on the devices which distinguish the application brand which should be used for such devices. So for example, you can buy products from Macwang, and if you want to use them in Zumtable or Osram applications, you would need to contact manufacturer to enable devices for such specific application. And it's when you have these devices on site and you haven't communicate your desire for different application, it might be very difficult to do it on site with physical devices delivered from the factory. So always talk to your partners and companies that deliver your devices to make sure that these devices will work on the environment you choose. Commissioning applications, you can see first group, we have Silvair with the green letter. You can see these are available in public app store. Silvair Open, this application is only for testing purposes. So you will need to contact Silvair support to receive such access, and there must be some justification why such access is needed. Of course, we have multiple branded applications as well available in public app store. So what I'm showing you right now, this might be outdated very quickly. So you would need to always check our knowledge base for the most accurate knowledge regarding branded applications. Branded applications are separated in terms of data, configuration, user management, and partners. Also, different branded applications can have individual functionality. For example, in Osram environment, there is no UI availability for gateway. Project created in one of the branded applications cannot be accessed using other applications. Projects cannot be moved between branded apps. This is very important to understand. If you create a project in our Silvair application, but you want to move this project to, let's say, a Macmon TrueBlue application, it won't be possible. So you cannot use also two different mobile applications to commission a single project. If the project was created in Silvair web application, you will need to use Silvair mobile application to commission devices in such project. Also, this is important and connected to user management. If you add installer to one branded application, you will need to create a separate account for different application. So there is no possibility to move one user from one branded application to another. This is a short list of applications and devices that are compatible. This changes all the time, so I would always advise to contact either manufacturers or partners, or check our knowledge base for recently changed information. So for application, in our Silvair application, we allow devices from, of course, Silvair, Future Electronics, Zomtable, Murata, DigiLite, and Macmon. In Silvair Open, for testing, we can add devices from all manufacturers. One of the branded apps is Zomtable BM Link, only using the Zomtable products. This is the same with Fulham and Elite Blue application. Linmore LED Ultra Link application also allows for devices from different manufacturers, not only Linmore, but also Macmon, Fulham, Murata, Future Electronics, and Silvair. Macmon application is called TrueBlue and also uses only Macmon devices, but also, which is not written here, Future Electronics devices. HubSense is a Osram application, Osram environment, which only allows Osram components. If you would like to know more regarding our partners and available applications, you can also contact our business representative for your company in Silvair, so we could share with you more data regarding such. Okay, coming back to commissioning. Out-of-range devices, devices that are out of range will appear grayed out. I cannot really present this because I don't have any devices far away, so I could reach. But you will immediately see while adding devices that such devices will not respond. Okay, this was the part of previous presentation. Relay nodes receive and forward mesh traffic. Non-relay nodes only receive traffic, so the mesh informations. Relays are set automatically by the application, and this works for grid installations, nodes laid out in a grid with little to no user intervention. The application randomly sets up 5 to 10% of the nodes as relays. Of course, it can be changed manually if needed. When commissioning non-grid installations, work your way down the line and ensure relays are set appropriately. This is very important to specifically know the best range for each devices, and then select relays that will not overlap too much between other relays, but will gather information and pass the mesh traffic forward without any issues. So this is how the traffic works between areas. So in this example, the relay isolated node has no connection with this red area. To fix that, you would need to separate blue area and the node between isolated node and the red area should also be commissioned to the red area for this isolated node to work properly. Proxy. Proxies allow one commissioning app to connect to the mesh network per proxy. As I shown before, when I added two devices, the first one to be added became a proxy to allow me to connect to mesh network with my tablet. Static proxies turned on or off by app or by the user, and the feature called out proxy doesn't require user intervention, and going through the zone whenever you lose the connectivity while connecting a new node to this zone, this node will become proxy to make sure that you have connectivity to this zone. At least one device per area must be proxy enabled, static or auto. Application automatically turns on static proxy during commissioning if no other proxy is in range. Auto proxy feature is available in firmware 2.17 and above. It turns nearby devices into on-demand proxies, which enables app access anywhere in the network. Regarding proxies and relays, do not hand off an installation with both static proxy and relay feature enabled on the same nodes, especially if the zones consist of a really small number of nodes. Even if you have one device in the zone and you would like to connect to the mesh network, of course, there is no other option than to have proxy and relay enabled together so that this device could reach the network from other zones in this area. But usually we recommend to separate nodes which are using these features. So one should have proxy and the other node in the zone should have a relay feature to connect to other zones in the network. Here we talk more about zone details and what you can see when clicking in the mobile app. This screenshot, I believe, is from web application. I was showing this on the previous presentation. So such menu is not available on the mobile app. You can see all the scenarios and profiles, which devices are set as proxies or relays. Additional information consists of commissioning date, configuration update date, enabled features, and firmware version. So, for example, if you have a device and you don't know what firmware is on it, you can just commission it and check in the web app what firmware version is being delivered with this device. An ocean switch. This is very important part of any room. Energy harvesting an ocean Bluetooth-enabled switch controls lights in a zone. An ocean switch doesn't communicate over the mesh. Devices in network are adapters for the Ocean switch. Always choose mesh devices in close proximity to an ocean as adapters, an ocean switch as adapters to ensure better performance. We recommend adding up to 2 adapters per zone for redundancy, so that when one node fails, the switch will still work with the second device. Very important feature, one switch can control multiple zones. These are 2 variations of an ocean switch. And I will show you the live presentation of that. Okay, here we have our zone from the beginning of the presentation. This is how the Ocean switch looks like. At the back, we have QR code, which we will use to add this Ocean switch to one of our nodes. I will use the one which is not a proxy. Here below the relay, you have an Ocean option. Simply click to activate the camera, and we will need to scan the code, and it's automatically added. You can see the ID of an ocean. I hope it's clearly visible. So first of all, as we have one zone with this Ocean switch, I can show you that by pressing right side of an ocean, I can change the color temperature of these 2 nodes. See, now it's So wrong side. Let me just light them up. And now it should go very warm. And app should go very cold. I hope you can see the difference. Just by pressing the right side of the Notion switch and holding, I can change the temperature. Let's leave it cold. So now in the zone, as we have this Notion switch, I can change the settings for scenes A and B, which will be triggered on the right side of Notion. Scene A is at the top right, scene B is at the bottom right. Let's configure this scene E. So this scene will light up only one device, and the second one will be switched off. Applying these settings will reconfigure the devices. Okay, so this was the scene A. You can see that there is custom next to the scene, as this shows you that this scene is actually configured. Let's configure the scene B. So the scene B will be reverse. Okay. So now if we look at the right side, and when I press scene B, bottom right, sadly nothing happens. Oh yeah, now it happens. Okay, so this is scene A. We have only one node light up. And scene B, we switch. So this is how the Notion switch works. Of course, we can, on the left side, we can dim the devices and light up. As you can see, this is a feature overriding this is called manual control. Even if we have scene B, if we dim devices down, if we dim up, the scene will not be recalled anymore. It will work with all the devices in this zone. Any questions regarding this step of commissioning? Okay, so let's continue. Now we know how to add a Notion switch. This is the correct placement for a Notion adapter. So every Bluetooth Mesh enabled node has a Notion adapter built in, so that each node can connect to a Notion. For redundancy, on the left side, you can see the node which has the connectivity with an ocean switch should be very in close proximity to such an ocean switch. And radio on an ocean switch is very low in range. So always try to use devices as close as possible. Okay, so in Ocean recommendations, it's possible to add one switch to multiple different zones. It's not recommended. Instead, we recommend using zone linking. Just because an Ocean switches don't have powerful radios or antennas and have limited range. Scattered zones set to be controlled with one switch will cause bad or lack of performance. Problems with an Ocean switches are very uncommon because these devices are very simple and robust. Always check position orientation of the switch before, especially before you stick it to some surface. Check proximity to first adapter, walk closer and click if it responds. There are situations where you really need to put an Ocean switch a bit further away from the node, but you can always test it before you put it in place. And also the device, the node that is connected to an Ocean switch should be powered on. And Ocean switches have programmable settings via NFC. If you suspect someone has altered the switch, you can factory reset it. I won't be presenting this, but this is both in our knowledge base available and also on the Ocean switch documentation. So this is the most important info is that you can actually factory reset switch so that you can re-add it to a different network. Okay, now we have scenes. I've showed you the A and B behavior. It's easy to go back in the app settings and forget to save the scene. There is no prompt to save it. So the scenes also can be tested in the mobile app. I will show you test tab later. So for custom scenes, it's best to define them before commissioning in the web app or after commissioning in the mobile app. And also understand these custom scenes and options on these scenes in the web app per zone, but per fixture in mobile app. So we are 1 hour in. Um, what do you think about a short 5-minute break before we go further?
Okay, let's come back at 5 minutes after the hour then. No problem. Thank you, Mirko.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm back with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Right now for sensor calibration, this is for daylight harvesting sensors. I won't be able to present this as a live view as I don't have environment for this right now, as proper light level is required. This is a scheme how sensor calibration looks and how we transfer the data from direct daylight and reflected daylight on the surfaces. More on it later. Calibration required. Whenever you choose a profile with daylight harvesting, the first node, the first sensor, daylight harvesting sensor you will be adding will ask you for calibration of such daylight harvesting. Calibration is done by providing a lux value manually. Lux measure is required for such calibration. Sensor placement. Sensor should be directly above the surface where you want to maintain desired lux level. Appropriate distance from window and luminaire, not above a highly reflective surface. So usually we would check daylight harvesting calibration on the floor. Nothing glossy like tables. Also, the surfaces around the target light level should be taken into consideration. People sometimes use different materials on their desk. So if the calibration was made on the table, and in the future, user would like to use some kind of panel or mouse pad on the table, it might give some errors afterwards. So it's not easy to have one setting for everything and every environment. So perform calibration after all furniture, interior finishes, and materials installed and the building has been occupied. So this is a very often mistake that installers hand off the project as fully commissioned, even with daylight harvesting, in the building owner is moving materials around afterwards. And sometimes we hear some complaints that daylight harvesting is actually not working as was designed and prepared before handoff. So make calibration adjustments at the distance from the sensor and light matter so that you do not interfere with lightness beneath the sensor. Calibrate under normal daylight conditions with all lights switched off. Do not perform calibration in dark conditions. We allow only at least 200 lux measured by the light meter on the surface to reduce the calibration error. Make sure windows and skylights are uncovered and clean. So as the process continues, select the light sensor, switch the toggle next to the light sensor to the right. So if you have multiple nodes, with ALS sensor, you can select the most appropriate one for sensing the light in the set room or zone. You will see daylight control is not calibrated. When you select the sensor that should be calibrated, you need to input the measured light level from physical lux meter. The better quality the meter is, the best results we achieve. So on the left, you can see that minimum 225 lux is required. And after setting the light level for this calibration, you can test calibration and also send feedback. This will gather logs from calibration. This is important for troubleshooting. Whenever you receive errors during calibration, or maybe lighting scene is behaving not as desired, you can always go back to the device that was calibrate it again, and send the logs to Silvair support from such calibration. So, of course, don't forget to use the search function in the knowledge base. And this will be all from today's presentation. As you can see, 3 hours window is a bit too long for our training, as this also is prepared for active participation for smaller groups where everyone can go through the steps that I'm just presenting right now. I will switch off to the live view to show you some options regarding zone linking. Here we are back to our project. We still have 3 singles uncommissioned. So right now I will create new zone. Let's name it zone 2. Profile can be whatever for this testing, can be conference room. Here we have the second zone. And you can see that there is a plus sign, so there are no devices, and we need to add fresh devices. Now we can see only 3 devices, as it is correct. And we can commission all of them very quickly at the same time. Okay, all devices are added. And both zones are healthy. So what I would like to do right now is go back to the web application and add some zone linking. Okay, let me show you the web application. Here we have our ARIA. This is commissioning demo. Here are the two zones we have. And now we can add zone linking. And here we can see which zone is selected for control. So we will select this zone, manual control for the zone 2. Okay. This will require reconfiguration of the devices in the zone 2. Coming back to the commissioning tab, we can right-click for zone details. Here you can see the error that configuration is required. You can see how many devices will have this configuration applied. You can see previously mentioned details. These devices are running on 2.19 firmware version. You can see the details regarding scenario and profile that is assigned. Right now in the mobile app, I will reconfigure all devices, but maybe I will show you the live view as well. This is the view from the mobile application. You can see the message that some devices require configuration. In the same area, you can reconfigure all devices in all the zones that might require reconfiguration. So you don't need to manually select the zone and go through configuration manually. If we go to the list of devices, we can also configure all. We can also do it one by one to repair one unit, which will apply the correct configuration for this unit. But for now, let's configure all devices. Okay. Now both zones are configured. Let's see how my switch works. Okay. So right now I can use my switch to light up all the devices in both zones, even though the switch is only added to zone to the first zone. Now, if I use scenes, you can see that scenes are working again, but these scenes are not affecting the zones, the three nodes in the second zone, because the only control we have right now on both zones is to dim, to light up and dim out the lights. So to fix that, for example, if we would like the 3 units from the second zone to, for example, use scenes as well. We can configure the scenes even though we don't have the Notion enabled, because the Notion adapter is in the first zone, which is set to control the second zone. So what we will do, let's say we will, on scene A, we will only light up the one node. This is how you properly set a switch that should control multiple zones. We really encourage installers to focus on zone linking more and properly setting this up than using switch control manually by adding to both zones. Okay. Now let's configure the scene B. Scene B will have 2 units on 100%. Okay. Okay, configuration is successful. Let's use the Notion switch to light up all the devices. Now I can shut down all of them. And let's use the scenes. Let's see what's happening if I use the scene A. You can see that both scenes are applied. Settings from first zone and settings from the second zone. And scene B is working flawlessly as well. And of course, if we light up all the devices, we can change the light color. Okay, so this will be all from today's presentation. I would expect some questions. If not now, maybe offline after this training. I hope it was interesting and brought you closer to our solutions. And yeah, that's it from the commissioning part of Silvair training.
Okay, Mieszko, thank you very much for that presentation. Thanks to all the participants. Our next session is going to be held on October the 14th. So if there's anybody that has any questions between now and then, you can either bring them up before or at that October 14th session. We are adding a new session on October 21st in order to finish. Our October 13th session is going to be the third session, and our final session is going to be on October the 21st. On Monday, we're going to be sending the new invitations to make sure that everybody has the proper dates, times, and links to enter so we can continue and finish with this training. Thanks, Mieszko. Thanks, everybody. Have a very good day and do take care. Thank you on behalf of Convergia and Silvair. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.